Everyone ignored the injured wolf pup until rejected Omega carried it home. Alpha King saw it all. A cold wind whispered secrets through the mist, carrying the faint scent of pine and frost. Somewhere deep in the darkness, a small cry broke the silence, a sound so fragile it could have been mistaken for the wind itself. The cry came from a wolf pup. Its fur was matted with dirt and blood, one leg bent unnaturally beneath it. Its bright amber eyes shimmered with fear and pain. The pup's small body trembled as it tried to crawl through the fallen leaves, leaving behind a streak of blood that glimmered faintly under the moonlight. The pack that roamed these woods passed by without a glance. Wolves that were once companions and guides now stepped over the pup's pitiful form, ears twitching at its cries but choosing to ignore them. Superstition gripped their hearts. The curse of the dark moon, they whispered, marked any wolf who suffered injury. To touch such a creature invited misfortune, even death. But not everyone in the forest was like the pack. Among the shadows walked Elara, the Omega of her pack. She had been rejected for her gentleness, her compassion considered weakness. Other wolves mocked her, branded her useless. She walked alone, her head low, carrying the quiet weight of years spent on the edge of the pack's world. Her sharp eyes caught the small movement among the leaves. She paused, ears flicking, and for a moment just watched. The pup's cries tugged at something in her chest. She could not turn away. No matter the superstition, no matter the whispers of fate, she felt she had to act. Carefully, she approached the injured pup. "Shhh, it's okay," she murmured, her voice soft but steady. The pup flinched at first, but, sensing her calm, allowed her to touch it. She lifted it gently, holding it close against her chest. Its small heart pounded in terror, but it did not struggle. Elara walked deeper into the forest, avoiding the paths the pack used, moving toward the hidden den she had claimed for herself. The forest seemed to bend around her, as if recognizing her courage and giving her passage. She murmured quietly to the pup, soothing it with words and gentle touches, never letting her gaze falter from its amber eyes. When they reached the den, a small, hidden nook beneath a cluster of twisted roots, Elara laid the pup down carefully. She inspected its broken leg, the swelling and bruising already forming. Her paws worked methodically, arranging leaves and soft moss as a bed. She tended to its wounds as best she could, pulling herbs from her satchel, mending what the forest allowed her to mend. Through the long night, Elara stayed with the pup. She spoke softly of stories she had heard as a young Omega, of kings and queens, of heroes who had risen from the humblest beginnings. "You are not alone," she whispered, stroking its fur. "I will not leave you, I promise." Unbeknownst to her, someone was watching. From the high cliffs that overlooked the dense forest, a shadow stirred. Kalen, the alpha king of the largest and most feared pack in Lithara, had observed her. He had seen the rejection in her eyes, the quiet solitude, and now, her courage. For decades, Kalen had ruled with strength and precision, letting no wolf break his discipline or threaten his authority. Love, mercy, and gentleness were foreign to him, words he had long buried beneath duty and dominance. And yet, there was something about the Omega and the pup that drew his gaze, something that made his heart tighten and his ancient pride tremble. As the hours passed, the pup stirred, whining softly. Elara leaned closer, her breath warm on its fur. "You'll be safe now. I will not let anyone hurt you again." Her eyes glimmered in the moonlight, reflecting both determination and sorrow, a reflection of her own life spent ignored and dismissed. Kalen's thoughts wandered. Could a creature so small, so weak, survive without strength or cunning? And yet here was this Omega, whose very gentleness was her strength, tending to the creature with a courage that rivaled any warrior. His jaw clenched involuntarily. A part of him, long dormant, stirred. The night was silent except for the soft sounds of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of an owl, and the pup's soft whimpers. Elara stayed awake, her body curled around the pup, shielding it from the cold. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of purpose beyond her own survival. The pack had rejected her, but she had chosen this small life. And in doing so, she felt something awaken inside her, a quiet strength that could not be measured by dominance or fear. Kalen moved closer, silently descending from the cliff. The moonlight caught the edges of his fur, silver and black, making him seem both otherworldly and terrifying. He stopped a few paces away, watching. There was no roar, no command, just a presence, immense and commanding. Yet despite the authority he radiated, he did not interfere. He only watched. Ilara sensed the movement, turning her head slightly. Her amber eyes met his golden ones across the clearing. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. She saw no anger, no immediate threat, only curiosity, the faintest trace of awe, and something deeper she could not name. "You should not be here," she said softly, her voice steady despite the shock of seeing the Alpha King in her den. Kalen's eyes narrowed slightly, a shadow of a smile touching his features. "I could say the same for you, Omega," he said, his voice low and smooth, carrying the weight of authority. "Why do you care for a cursed pup that no one else will touch?" Ilara bristled, her small body stiffening. "Because it is alive," she replied simply. "It does not deserve to die alone." He studied her, intrigued. Not only had she defied superstition, she had defied the pack's harsh judgment and acted from compassion alone. Compassion, a word Kalen had long buried beneath power and fear. He had no answer, and for the first time in decades he felt a pang of uncertainty. "You are brave," he said finally, his voice almost a whisper. "Or foolish." "Perhaps both," she admitted, looking down at the pup and stroking its fur. "But it is better to try and fail than to ignore those in need." Kalen's gaze softened slightly. The pup stirred, whining again, and Ilara murmured to it, soothing it. Kalen saw her devotion, the way she cared for the fragile life with patience and gentleness, and something inside him shifted. He had ruled through fear and power for decades, yet here was a wolf who ruled through heart alone. And he did not know if he envied her or feared the change she brought to him. The night deepened. Mist curled around the den like a living thing, silver threads floating in the pale moonlight. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Kalen remained hidden, unwilling to reveal himself further, yet unable to leave. He was captivated by the bond forming between the Omega and the pup, a bond that mirrored something he had lost long ago. Ilara eventually fell into a light, exhausted sleep, the pup nestled against her chest. Kalen watched, silent and unmoving, as the moonlight bathed them in a soft glow. For the first time, he understood that strength was not only in dominance and control, it could also exist in gentleness, in the courage to care when all others looked away. Hours passed. The pup stirred, small whines breaking the stillness. Ilara's eyes opened, soft with sleep but sharp with alertness. "SHH, it's okay," she whispered. She held the pup closer, and the faintest trace of a smile brushed her lips. Kalen stepped forward, breaking the forest's delicate silence. He did not speak immediately, only observed. The Omega, rejected by her pack, showing a strength greater than many leaders he had known. The pup, fragile yet slowly gaining life. And the quiet, undeniable bond forming between them. Finally he spoke, his voice cutting through the night like a gentle storm. "I see everything." Ilara's ears twitched and she lifted her head, meeting his gaze. "You watched?" she asked, voice low but firm. "I did," Kalen admitted, stepping into the moonlight fully. "And I am intrigued." A shiver ran through the forest. For Ilara, this was the first acknowledgement of her strength from someone whose judgment could not be ignored. For Kalen, this was the first stir of a feeling he had not allowed himself to experience in decades. Something between admiration, fascination, and something more dangerous. The pup whimpered, shifting between them, as if sensing the tension, the unspoken truths and the power slowly intertwining with vulnerability. Ilara held it closer, and Kalen's golden eyes never left her. That night in the silent heart of Lithara, a bond was born, not just between the Omega and the pup, but between the Omega and the Alpha King who had seen her courage and could not look away. And neither knew that this single act of compassion would set the stage for trials, curses, and a destiny far larger than either of them could yet imagine. Hook cliffhanger. As Kalen stepped closer, the wind shifted unnaturally, carrying a faint, eerie howl from deep within the forest. The pup's amber eyes glowed briefly, and Alara's heart clenched. Something ancient was stirring, and the night had only just begun. The morning mist curled between the blackened pines as Alara stirred. The pup, small and fragile, nuzzled against her chest, its amber eyes blinking sleepily. She had tended to it through the night, and for the first time since finding it, the pup seemed calmer. The forest, though still dense with shadows, felt less threatening now. Kaelin had remained near the edge of her den, unseen, watching as the first rays of sunlight touched the forest floor. Even in daylight, his presence commanded the surroundings. Every movement of the trees seemed to bend subtly toward him, as if the forest itself recognized his authority. But it was not dominance that held him there. It was curiosity, an unfamiliar tug at his long-guarded heart. Finally, he stepped into view. Alara froze, her fur bristling slightly, the pup instinctively curling tighter into her arms. Kaelin's gaze was steady, piercing yet strangely unreadable. "You have kept it safe," he said, his voice low but firm. "Despite the risk, despite what the pack might think." Alara met his gaze evenly. "It needed someone," she replied simply. "I could not leave it to die alone." Kaelin's golden eyes softened slightly, and yet the edge of authority never left his tone. "Many would call that foolishness," he said, taking a step closer. "Yet you did it anyway. I find that remarkable, remarkable." The word echoed in Alara's mind. She had been dismissed, mocked, ignored. And now the Alpha King himself was acknowledging her choice, her courage. It should have felt satisfying, but instead her heart tightened. There was something in Kaelin that made the air heavier, something that made her pulse quicken without warning. "Why are you here?" she asked finally, trying to steady her voice. "You are the Alpha King. Your place is with your pack, not here." Kaelin's gaze flicked to the pup, then back to her. "I came because I saw something unusual," he admitted. "Strength in gentleness, courage in care. I have not seen that in a long time." Alara felt a strange warmth rise in her chest. It was not admiration or fear, it was more complex, more unsettling. He was not merely observing her, he was judging her, learning from her, and yet there was no malice. That alone was rare. The pup whimpered softly, breaking the tension. Alara bent down, murmuring to it, soothing it with the calm authority she had found in herself. Kaelin watched quietly, his expression unreadable. The connection between them, the pup, the Omega, and the Alpha King, was growing in ways neither fully understood. Days passed. The pup began to heal, though its leg remained weak. Alara's care was unwavering. Every day, Kaelin returned, at first silently observing from the forest's edge, then gradually stepping closer, sometimes speaking, sometimes simply watching. He told her of his past in fragments, admitting only pieces of what had shaped him. Once, he had loved fiercely, only to be betrayed by a queen whose ambition surpassed her heart. That betrayal had left a scar not on his body, but deep within his spirit. The pack had feared him ever since, and for decades he had ruled with authority, never softness. Love, mercy, compassion. He had buried them under duty and fear. Yet here was Alara showing all three at once. Every small act of kindness, every gentle word to the pup, every refusal to bow to fear or superstition, it challenged him in ways he had not anticipated. And still, Kaelin's pride resisted. He could not openly show the stirrings of emotion, the growing pull toward her. Authority demanded distance, survival demanded vigilance. But longing had begun to twist and coil in his chest, insistent and unyielding. Alara, too, felt the tension between them. There was something magnetic about Kalen, undeniable and almost frightening. His presence demanded attention, respect, and even fear, but it also stirred something in her heart, a desire to be understood, to be seen, to be more than the Omega everyone dismissed. And yet, she had learned to protect herself, to trust no one fully. One evening, under a blood-red moon, the tension reached its peak. The pup had wandered slightly, testing its strength, and returned to Alara, shaking and exhausted. She picked it up, murmuring reassurances, unaware that Kalen was watching from a ridge nearby. "You care for it as if it were your own," he said finally, stepping into view. His voice carried a rare softness, but it was still firm, commanding attention. Alara's ears twitched in surprise. "It is helpless," she replied simply. "Someone must care." Kalen's gaze lingered on her, intense and unwavering. "Do you not see?" he asked quietly. "The world is cruel, the pack is cruel, and yet you persist. You are remarkable, Omega." Alara's heart tightened. She had been ignored, ridiculed, rejected. And now the Alpha King, the strongest and most feared wolf in Lithara, was calling her remarkable. It should have felt like triumph, but instead it felt like a challenge. Could she rise to match the weight of his attention? Could she survive the pull of someone so powerful? The forest shifted around them. A chill ran through the air, and even the mist seemed to swirl with intent. The pup whimpered again, and Kalen's sharp senses caught it instantly. He stepped closer, lowering himself slightly as if to appear less threatening. "Let me help," he said simply. Alara blinked, unsure. The Alpha King offering assistance was unheard of, and yet something in his eyes, honest, unguarded, curious, made her nod. Together they tended to the pup, their movements almost in sync, each respecting the other's strength and care. For the first time, Kalen allowed himself a moment of vulnerability. He saw the depth of her courage, the quiet power and gentleness, and the way her heart reached out even when the world had turned away. He realized that strength was not always in dominance, not always in fear. It could be in protection, compassion, and the courage to care. As night fell, a strange wind swept through the trees. The pup whimpered and lifted its head, ears twitching. The blood-red moon cast a shimmering glow, and for a fleeting moment the pup's eyes glowed unnaturally. Alara stiffened, her heart racing. What is happening?" she whispered. Kalen's gaze hardened, his instincts on high alert. He had sensed the ancient forces at work in Lithara before, and this was no ordinary event. The dark moon, the curse that haunted the forest for centuries, had awakened. The pup was not merely injured. It was touched by something far older and far more dangerous than either of them understood. The air grew heavy. The shadows deepened. Kalen stepped protectively in front of Alara, his golden eyes scanning the forest. "Stay close," he commanded quietly. "Whatever stirs in the night, we face it together." Alara felt a thrill of fear and excitement. The forest had always been dangerous, but now danger carried a pulse, a life of its own. She held the pup closer, feeling the small heartbeat against her chest, and something deep within her stirred. She would not run. She would not falter. She would protect this life, even against the unknown forces that had begun to stir. Kalen, too, felt the pull of something beyond the forest, beyond the pack, beyond even his own control. He was drawn to Alara, not just for her courage, but for her heart, unyielding and luminous even in the shadows. He realized that the bond forming between them was stronger than fear, stronger than pride, and possibly even stronger than the curse that now whispered through the trees. As the night deepened, the wind carried a faint, eerie howl from far beyond the forest. The pup's amber eyes glowed again, and a shiver ran down Alara's spine. Kalen's ears twitched, his body tense, ready to defend. "This is only the beginning," he murmured, almost to himself. "The forest remembers, and the dark moon it has chosen its path." Alara tightened her hold on the pup. She did not understand the forces at work, nor the prophecy that had begun to unfold. But she understood one thing clearly. She would not abandon the pup, and she would not run from whatever danger was coming, and neither would Kaelin. Together they stood in the heart of the forest, the pup nestled safely between them, the shadows and the mist swirling with ancient power, and the blood-red moon casting its eerie light. The bond between the Omega and the Alpha King had begun, a bond forged in courage, care, and the unspoken promise to face whatever came next. Hook cliffhanger, a rustle in the underbrush. The pup growls, ears flat, eyes glowing brighter than before. From the shadows, a figure steps forward, cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with a hunger for the pup's hidden power. Elara and Kaelin tense. The true trial of courage, power, and heart is about to begin. The forest grew silent, as if holding its breath. The mist thickened, curling between the blackened pines like living shadows. The pup's fur bristled, and its amber eyes glowed brighter than before. Elara's heart pounded in her chest as she scanned the trees. Something unseen moved among the shadows, ancient, powerful, and aware of their presence. Kaelin stepped forward, his body tense, muscles coiled like a spring. His golden eyes glimmered with both curiosity and caution. "Stay close," he whispered, low and commanding. "Whatever this is, it does not belong to our world." Elara nodded, holding the pup tightly against her chest. "I won't let it be taken," she said firmly. The words surprised even her. She had always believed herself powerless, rejected, alone. But now, with the pup between her arms and the Alpha King beside her, she felt a courage she had never known. From the deepest shadows of the forest, a cold wind swept toward them. A dark figure emerged, tall and ethereal, eyes glowing like molten silver. Its presence made the trees shiver and the mist swirl violently. It was the spirit of the dark moon, a curse that had haunted Lithara for centuries, now awakened and drawn to the pup. "You dare touch what is mine," the spirit hissed, its voice echoing through the forest like distant thunder. "The pup carries the seed of power, the prophecy of balance, and you interfere." Elara tightened her hold on the pup. "It is not yours to take," she shouted, her voice trembling but resolute. "It is alive, and it deserves to live." Kaelin growled low in his throat, a sound that rolled through the forest like distant drums. His body glowed faintly, the power of his lineage responding to the threat. "Back," he commanded, his voice absolute. "Leave now or face the consequences." The spirit laughed, a chilling sound that cut through the mist. "You cannot stop me, Alpha King." The prophecy cannot be altered. One must sacrifice their desire to save the child, or all will be lost. Elara froze, her mind raced. Sacrifice, desire, what does it mean? Kaelin's gaze softened slightly, a flicker of doubt in his golden eyes. He had faced danger before, controlled armies and survived battles that left entire packs broken. But this was different. This was not mere physical power. This was a test of heart, of spirit, of what they truly valued. "I do not know yet," Kaelin admitted. "But I will not let it take the pup, not while I live." The dark moon spirit moved closer, and the forest seemed to shrink under its presence. The wind howled like a living thing, carrying whispers of pain, loss, and ancient warnings. The pup whimpered, sensing the danger, its small body trembling. Elara leaned closer, murmuring comfort. "You are safe," she whispered. "I am here. I will not leave you." Kaelin's heart tightened at the sight. The Omega, rejected by her pack, showing strength and courage beyond what he had ever imagined. Her compassion was her weapon, her bravery shining like a beacon against the darkness. For the first time, he realized that the power he had wielded through dominance alone was nothing compared to the strength of her heart. The spirit's form twisted, growing taller, darker, more menacing. "One must offer what they desire most," it hissed. "Only then will the pup live. Choose or watch it perish." Elara's mind raced. She thought of her life of rejection, solitude, and the years spent in the shadows of the pack. She thought of the pup, fragile and innocent, and the bond forming between them. Without hesitation, she stepped forward. I will give myself," she said firmly. "Take me instead. Let the pup live. Kalen's ears twitched and his golden eyes flared with both anger and disbelief. No, he roared. You do not understand what you are offering. I understand perfectly, Alara said. Her voice shook, but her resolve did not. I cannot stand by while it suffers. I will not abandon it no matter what the cost. The dark moon spirit recoiled slightly, intrigued by her courage. Few are willing to offer themselves freely. Few are willing to risk their heart and soul for another. It extended a shadowy arm toward Alara, its eyes glimmering with expectation. Kalen moved instantly, placing himself between the spirit and the Omega. I will not allow it, he growled. His body radiated power, the Alpha King's ancestral strength responding to the threat. The ground trembled beneath him, the trees shivering as if bowing to his authority. Alara's eyes met his. Kalen, it is my choice. Her gaze was unwavering. I will not let the pup die. Kalen's golden eyes softened, filled with a rare vulnerability. For the first time, he realized what he desired most, not power, not authority, but the chance to protect those he cared for. And now he faced a truth he had never acknowledged. He cared deeply for the Omega who had risked everything for a tiny, fragile life. Then we do this together, he said finally, his voice low but resolute. I will stand with you. We face this together. Alara nodded, her heart pounding. The pup whimpered, sensing the tension and the power radiating from both wolves. She whispered softly to it, calming its fear, and Kalen stepped closer, letting his presence shield them both. The dark moon spirit hissed, its form twisting violently. Together, fools, none can oppose me. But Kalen did not waver. He summoned the ancestral strength of his lineage, drawing on centuries of power and command. His fur glimmered faintly, silver and black in the moonlight, eyes blazing with golden fire. Alara drew courage from him, her own heart radiating pure compassion, her desire to protect the pup amplifying the force of her spirit. The clash of power erupted, not with physical blows but with the energy of heart and will. The forest shuddered, the mist swirling violently as light and shadow collided. The dark moon spirit lashed out, striking at Kalen and Alara, testing their resolve, probing their hearts for weakness. Alara held the pup closer, her own energy flowing outward, meeting the spirit's force with a calm, unwavering light. She did not fight with aggression but with understanding. You do not understand what life means, she whispered. This pup has the right to grow, to learn, to love. We will not let you take it. Kalen roared and the ground shook beneath him. His power combined with hers, a balance of strength and compassion, dominance and gentleness. Together they pushed back the spirit, forcing it to retreat, its form twisting in anger and disbelief. For a moment silence fell. The forest held its breath. The pup, exhausted but unharmed, blinked at them with bright amber eyes. Alara sank to her knees, holding it close, tears of relief spilling from her eyes. Kalen watched quietly, his chest heaving, his pride tempered by awe. He had fought battles and commanded fear, but nothing had ever humbled him like this. The courage of the Omega, the purity of her heart, and the bond she had formed with the pup, it was a power he could neither conquer nor control. Alara looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. There was no fear now, only understanding. It is safe, she said softly. The danger is gone for now. Kalen nodded, though his golden eyes still burned with the intensity of what they had faced. He stepped closer, lowering his massive head to the Omega's level. You are extraordinary, he murmured. And this bond, it is rare. Do you understand what we have just done? The forest, the curse, the power we faced. Alara nodded slowly. I understand, and I would do it again. I would protect life no matter the cost. Kalen's heart clenched. He had always believed that strength came from control, from fear, from dominance. But now he saw clearly that true strength came from courage, from compassion, from the willingness to face danger for another. And more than that, he felt the stirrings of something he could not name, something that drew him closer to the Omega with every heartbeat. The forest settled around them, the mist thinning, the trees standing tall once more. Yet the shadows remained, a reminder that the dark moon's influence was not gone entirely. It had been pushed back, but its presence lingered, a promise that future trials awaited. Alara held the pup tightly, feeling its small heartbeat steady beneath her fur. Kalen remained close, his protective presence a silent vow. Together, they had faced the curse and survived, but both knew that the darkness had only been delayed, not defeated. And in that quiet forest, under the watchful gaze of the blood-red moon fading into dawn, a bond was forged. A bond of courage, of heart, and of unspoken longing, one that would be tested again, in ways neither could yet imagine. Hook cliffhanger. As the first light of dawn touched the treetops, the wind carried a low, chilling howl from deep within the forest. The pup's eyes flickered with an otherworldly glow, and Kalen stiffened, sensing a new presence approaching, one that would challenge not only their courage, but the fragile bond forming between the Omega and the Alpha King. The forest was quiet as the first rays of sunlight pierced the mist, painting silver streaks across the blackened pines. The pup nestled safely between Alara and Kalen, its amber eyes blinking sleepily. The events of the previous night lingered like a distant storm in their minds, a mixture of fear, relief, and the unspoken bond that had formed under the shadow of the dark moon. Kalen's golden eyes never left Alara. He had faced countless threats, fought battles that had shattered entire packs, and survived curses that would have ended most lives. Yet none of that had prepared him for the courage and unwavering heart of this Omega who had risked herself to save the pup. Her bravery had challenged his pride and softened the edge of his authority. For the first time, he felt something beyond duty, something that stirred in the depths of his chest and whispered of longing. Alara adjusted the pup in her arms and looked at him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "The forest feels different," she said softly. "As if it is watching us, waiting," Kalen nodded. "It is," he admitted. "The dark moon's influence remains. The spirit may have been pushed back, but the forest remembers. There may be trials yet to come." She nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his words. But she was no longer afraid, not with him by her side. The bond between them, forged in courage and compassion, gave her strength she had never known. For a time, they walked together through the forest, the pup between them, moving cautiously as the mist swirled around their paws. The trees seemed to lean slightly toward them, as if recognizing the courage that had protected the innocent life. Kalen's presence was both commanding and comforting, a shield against the lingering shadows that whispered from the far edges of the forest. As they reached a clearing, Alara paused. "The pup, it has healed more than I expected," she said, her voice soft. "I never imagined it would recover so quickly." Kalen lowered his head to examine the small creature. "It is strong," he said, "but strength alone would not have been enough. Your courage, your care, that is what saved it." Alara's ears twitched at his words. There was respect there and something more, a quiet admiration that made her heart flutter. "I did what I had to," she said simply. "It is alive because I refused to abandon it. That is all." Kalen studied her, his gaze intense and unwavering. "You are more than you know, Omega," he said quietly. "You have faced fear, rejection, and the darkness itself, and yet you remain compassionate. That is rare. That is powerful." Alara felt warmth rise in her chest. For so long she had been invisible, dismissed, and ignored. And yet here was the Alpha King, the strongest wolf in all of Lithara, acknowledging her strength, her courage, and the purity of her heart. She did not know how to respond, so she simply nodded, letting her silence speak. The pup whimpered softly and nudged her hand. Alara bent down, stroking its fur. Kalen watched the interaction, his heart swelling with a strange, unfamiliar emotion. He had led packs, commanded warriors, and faced death countless times, but he had never felt the pull that tugged at his chest now, the desire to protect, to care, and to connect with another in such a profound way. The forest remained still, the mist curling gently around them, but a sense of calm replaced the tension of the night before. The dark moon's shadow had receded, and yet its warning lingered, a reminder that power and danger often walked hand in hand. Kalen stepped closer to Alara. "You saved more than the pup last night," he said softly. "You saved something in me as well, something I thought long lost." Alara looked up at him, her amber eyes wide. "What do you mean?" she asked. He hesitated, a rare moment of vulnerability in his commanding presence. "I have ruled through fear and strength for decades," he said. "I have never allowed myself to care, to be vulnerable. But watching you protecting this pup, I have realized that strength can also come from compassion, from love, from courage that is quiet but unyielding." Alara felt her heart skip. She had always longed to be seen, to matter, to make a difference beyond her own survival. And now the Alpha King was speaking to her as an equal, not as a leader to a subordinate, but as someone who recognized her worth, her power, and her heart. The pup stirred again, nuzzling against Alara's chest, and she smiled softly. "It will be all right," she whispered. "We will protect each other." Kalen's gaze softened further, the golden light in his eyes mingling with a warmth he had not known he could feel. "Yes," he agreed, "together." For the first time in centuries, he felt a sense of hope. Not for conquest, not for power, but for connection, for bond, for redemption. The past's weight still pressed upon him, the memories of betrayal and loss lingering like shadows, but with Alara beside him, the path ahead seemed brighter. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments of understanding and care. Alara taught the pup to walk again, to play, to trust. Kalen observed, offering guidance when necessary but allowing her space to lead, recognizing the strength she wielded through compassion. The bond between Omega, Alpha, and pup grew deeper with each passing moment, a foundation of trust, courage, and shared purpose. Yet the forest had not forgotten. From the shadows, the remnants of the dark moon's curse lingered, whispering warnings of trials still to come. But for now there was peace, fragile and precious, in the golden light of morning and the soft rustle of leaves. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Kalen and Alara sat together in the clearing. The pup curled between them, exhausted but content. The air was calm, the forest holding its breath as if in respect for the courage that had survived the night before. Kalen turned his gaze to Alara, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "You are not alone anymore," he said quietly. "The pack may have rejected you, but you are stronger than they could ever understand. And now, you have me." Alara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief, admiration, and something deeper, longing, hope, and the stirrings of love. She met his golden eyes and nodded slowly. "I have never been alone," she admitted. "Not really, and I am glad you are here." The pup stirred, licking her face, and she laughed softly. Kalen's lips twitched in a rare, private smile. Together, they watched the forest, knowing that challenges lay ahead but feeling stronger for the trials they had faced together. The bond between them was no longer defined by fear or rejection. It was defined by courage, care, and the unspoken promise that they would protect each other, and the pup, no matter what came next. As night fell, the moon rose, full and bright, casting silver light across the clearing. The mist swirled gently, and the shadows danced softly between the trees. Kalen's gaze lingered on Alara, his mind and heart entwined with the Omega who had shown him the true meaning of strength. Alara leaned against him, her own fur brushing against his. "Whatever comes," she whispered, "we face it together." Kalen's golden eyes softened, the edges of his pride replaced by warmth. "Together," he agreed. The pup yawned and settled between them, a small, fragile life that had become the heart of their bond. The forest seemed to sigh, acknowledging the courage, love, and resilience that had survived the trials of the dark moon. But even as peace settled, the shadows remained, whispering softly of trials yet to come, of ancient powers that had been awakened, and of the responsibilities that the bond of heart and courage would demand. For now, however, the forest was quiet. The pup slept peacefully. Alara rested against Kaelin, and Kaelin allowed himself to feel the unspoken connection that had grown between them, one of trust, respect, and a quiet, simmering love. The darkness of the past had not vanished entirely, but it had been tempered by courage, compassion, and the bond that had been forged in the crucible of trials. Alara, once rejected, now stood beside the Alpha King, not as subordinate, but as equal, strong, brave, and unafraid. Kaelin, the feared Alpha King, had discovered something he thought lost to him forever: the power of heart, the strength of compassion, and the quiet courage of love. Together they had faced the curse, survived the darkness, and found redemption, not only for themselves, but for the fragile life they had sworn to protect. And as the moon cast its silver glow across the forest, illuminating the trio in soft light, the forest whispered its approval. The pup yawned again, curling closer to Alara. Kaelin wrapped a protective paw around both of them, his golden eyes reflecting the moonlight and something far brighter: hope, trust, and the promise of a shared destiny.